Peter Pan. There once was a house in London where a family named Darling lived. They were Mr. and Mrs. Darling and their three children, Wendy, John, and Michael. Watching over the children was Nana, the nursemaid, who also happened to be a dog. It was to this house that Peter Pan came one magical night. He chose this house for one very special reason. There were people there who believed in him, but not Mr. Darling. He only thought about business, the importance of being on time, and dressing properly. But Mrs. Darling was still young enough at heart to believe that Peter Pan was the spirit of youth. Then there were John and Michael. They knew how to fight off pirates, whoop like Indians, and march like soldiers. To them, Peter Pan was certainly real, and they made him the hero of all their games. But the expert on Peter Pan was Wendy. She knew everything there was to know about him. On this particular night, after Michael and John had drawn a pirate map on their father's shirt front, Mr. Darling angrily declared the children needed to grow up. Then, turning to Wendy, he added, "This is your last night in the nursery, young lady, and there will be no more dogs for nursemaid in this house." Mr. Darling cried as he marched Nana outside, where he tied her up for the night. That's how it came to be that when Mr. and Mrs. Darling went out to a party later that night, Wendy, Michael, and John were left all alone, asleep in their room. Peter Pan and his pixie, Tinker Bell, slipped in through the window. The Darlings' nursery a familiar place to Peter. He liked to sit in the shadows and listen to Wendy's stories about Neverland. But on his last visit, Peter had been separated from his shadow. Tonight he had come to get it back. "Well done, Tink, you have found it," Peter whispered. Then Tinker Bell discovered his shadow. But the shadow was in no hurry to be caught. It flitted and scritched around the room. Peter charged after it, making such a racket that Wendy woke up. "Peter Pan, I knew you would come," Wendy cried. "I saved your shadow for you. Let me sew it for you. Oh, Peter, I'm so glad you came back tonight, because it's my last night in the nursery," she added sadly. "But that means no more stories?" cried Peter. "I won't have it. Come on, we are going to Neverland. You will never grow up there." "John, Michael, wake up. Peter's taking us to Neverland," cried Wendy. "But Peter, how do we get there?" "Fly, of course. It's easy. All you have to do is think a wonderful thought," and said Peter, shaking Tinker Bell a little bit of pixie dust. "We can fly!" shouted Wendy, John, and Michael as they followed Peter and Tink out of the nursery window. They soared over the rooftops of London. Peter laughed with glee as he pointed up into the sky. "There it is, Wendy, Neverland, second star to the right and straight on till morning." From high up in the morning, they finally spotted the land of their dreams. "Look, John!" cried Wendy. "Mermaid Lagoon!" "And the Indian camp," yelled John. "There's the pirate ship and its crew," added Michael. "It's just as you told us, Wendy." The captain of the pirate ship was Hook. He hated Peter Pan. "Blasted Peter Pan," said Hook as he studied a map of Neverland. "If I could only find his hideout, I would trap him." Captain Hook got his name because he had a hook where his hand should have been. And who was to blame for that? Why, Peter Pan, of course. Hook had another enemy too, the crocodile. "He's been following me around for years, licking his chops," said Hook, "and he would have had you by now, Captain, if he hadn't swallowed that alarm clock. Now, when he's about, he warns you with his tick tock, said me." "Peter Pan, ahoy!" cried the lookout. Instantly, Captain Hook forgot about the crocodile. "Swoggle me eyes!" he cried, looking through his telescope. "It is Pan!" He ordered his man to load the cannon and fire. "Quick, Tink!" shouted Peter as the cannon balls flew by. "Take Wendy and the boys to the island. I will stay here and cause a diversion. Tinker Bell took off at once for Peter's hideaway, but she purposely flew too fast, leaving the others far behind. Tinker Bell, wait for us. We can't keep up with you, yelled Wendy and the boys, but Tinker didn't want to wait. Peter Pan had hardly looked at Tinker Bell since Wendy had come along. Tink didn't like it one bit, and now she had a plan. Tinker Bell zoomed ahead, flying into an opening in the air where the Lost Boys and Peter lived. She told the boys Peter had sent her with a message that there was a terrible Wendy bird headed their way. Peter's order read to shoot it down. Boys hurried out from their hiding place. I see it, yelled Skunk, as he and the others placed stones in their slingshots. Ready, aim, fire, shouted the boys. Suddenly, rocks were flying everywhere, hitting Wendy and sending her tumbling from the sky. Luckily, Peter Pan arrived just in time to catch Wendy. Peter, you saved my life, said Wendy, throwing her arms around him. I bring you a mother to tell you stories, Peter angrily told the Lost Boys, and you shoot her down? But Tink said it was a bird, stammered Cubby. She said you said to shoot her, added Rabbit. Tinker Bell, said Peter, you might have killed Wendy. I hereby banish you forever. Please, begged Wendy, feeling sorry for poor Tinker Bell. Not forever, for a week then, declared Peter. Taking Wendy by the hand, Peter flew off to show her Mermaid Lagoon. John and Michael wanted to explore Neverland too, but had no interest in mermaids. They wanted to see Indians. John, you be the leader, declared the Lost Boys. Then, lining up behind him, they marched off into the forest. As they marched along, the Lost Boys and John made a plan. They would be very clever and capture the Indians. It might have worked too, except for one thing the Indians got them first. Michael and John were very frightened until the Lost Boys explained how things worked. When we win, we turn them loose. When they win, they turn us loose. But this time, the Indian chief wouldn't set the Lost Boys free. He thought that they had kidnapped his daughter, Tiger Lily. You tell me where you hid Princess Tiger Lily, the chief said, or you'll be punished. Meanwhile, as Peter was showing Wendy the lagoon, he suddenly spotted Hook and Smee roaring by in a small boat. Tied up in the back was Tiger Lily. It looks like they are headed for Skull Rock, Peter said. Let's see what they're up to. Sure enough, Hook was holding Tiger Lily prisoned and had tied her to a rock in the sea. Peter set off to rescue her before the tide came in. I will show the codfish. Stay here, Wendy, and watch the fun, Peter called. Have got you this time, Pan, Hook cried as he forced Peter near the edge of the cliff. Peter backed away, but Hook followed him. Ah! Hook yelled as he tumbled off the cliff. I will get you for this, Pan. As he fell towards the water, Hook heard a familiar sound. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. The crocodile was waiting. I say, Hook, grinned Peter Pan. Do you hear something? The crocodile swallowed the captain, but the terrified Hook fought furiously and jumped right away back. Smee, Smee! Hook screamed as he tumbled into the boat. Row for the ship! Row for the ship! While Smee rowed as fast as he could, Peter swooped down to save Tiger Lily and fly her back home. The Indian chief was so happy to see his daughter again that he freed John, Michael, and the Lost Boys. Then he placed a headdress, beautiful feathers on Peter Pan, proclaiming Peter Pan, Chief Little Flying Eagle. Wahoo! Yelled Peter Pan. Oh, how beautiful, said Wendy. Bravo, added John. But there was someone who was not joining in the celebration. Poor Tinkerbell was all alone without Peter or her friends, the Lost Boys, and she wasn't happy at all. And that's just how Smee found Tinkerbell, all alone sitting by herself. Begging your pardon, Miss Bell, said Smee, catching Tinkerbell in his cap. But Captain Hook would like a word with you, if you don't mind. The captain wanted a word. All right, several of them. We sail in the morning, he told Tinkerbell. If she would only tell him where Peter's hideout was, why he would take Wendy to sea with him. With her gone, Peter will soon forget his mad infatuation. Sick with jealousy and loneliness, Tinkerbell fell for Hook's evil plan and showed him how to find Peter's hideaway. Smiled. He grabbed Tinkerbell and locked her in a glass lantern. At last he could get his revenge on Peter Pan once and for all. At Peter's hideaway, all was cozy and quiet. Wendy, acting as a good mother should, was tucking the boys into bed. As she did, she sang to them about the wonders of a real mother. By the time Wendy had finishing her song, John and Michael were so homesick that they wanted to leave for London at once. Even the lost boys wanted to go, but not Peter. Go back and grow up, he said stubbornly. But I'm warning you, once you have grown up, you can never come back. But no one was listening to Peter. They had only one thought on their minds, a mother to love them and hold them and sing them to sleep at night. One by one, the boys left Peter's hideaway, only to walk right into the arms of the waiting pirates. Now to take care of Master Peter Pan, chuckled Hook as he lowered a beautifully wrapped package into the hideaway, tying his prisoners to the mast of his pirate ship. Hook warned them, join us or walk the plank. Never, declared Wendy. Peter Pan will save us. My dear, said Hook. We left a present for Peter, a sort of a surprise package. I can see our little friend at this very moment, reading the tender note to Peter with love from Wendy. Could he but see within the package, he would find an ingenious little device set so that when it is 6 o'clock, he will be blasted out of Neverland forever. Hearing Hook's evil plan, a desperate Tinkerbell knocked off the lantern where Hook held her present. Crack went the glass. Tinkerbell was free. Off she flew to try to save Peter. Back in his hideout, Peter Pan picked up the package and was just untying the bow when Tinkerbell flew in. Hi, Tink, said Peter, holding up the box. Look what Wendy left. Tinkerbell tried to pull the package away. Stop that, yelled Peter. What's the matter with you? There was no time to explain. Tink flew at the box, pushing it as far from Peter as she could. The gift began to smoke, and then kaboom! The explosion was so huge it rocked the pirate ship. Hook removed his hat and bowed, and so passed at a worthy opponent. Smiling, Hook turned to the captive children. Which will it be? Join me, crew, or walk the plank? Wendy spoke up bravely. Captain Hook, we will never join your crew. Hook gave Wendy his most gentlemanly bow. Ladies first, my dear. With tears trickling down her cheeks, Wendy walked the plank, one step, then another, closer and another to the edge, until finally she jumped. Captain, said Smee, there was no splash. The ship's bewitched. The men began to wail. But it wasn't a ghost who had come to haunt Hook. It was Peter Pan along with Tinker Bell. He had come to save Wendy. This time you have gone too far, shouted Peter Pan as he flew up onto the rigging. Hook scrambled up after him, then drew his sword. Take that, cried Hook as he lunged at Peter, forcing him off balance. I will run you through. Peter quickly flew out of Hook's way, cutting this way and that with his daggers. You wouldn't dare fight old Hook man to man, taunted the captain. You'd fly away like a cowardly sparrow. I will fight you man to man with one hand behind my back, crowed Peter. As Wendy, John, Michael, and the Lost Boys fought the pirate crew, Hook took a powerful swing at Peter, but the captain lost his balance. Down, down, down fell Captain Hook to face his worst fear. The crocodile was waiting and his mouth was widely open. The last Peter, Wendy, John, Michael, or the Lost Boys heard of the terrible Captain Hook were his calls for help. Hooray for Captain Pan! Screamed all the children. All right, Yaswar, said Peter Pan to his brand new crew. We are casting off. But Peter, stamped Wendy. Could you tell me, sir, where we are sailing? We are going to London, madam, said Peter. Michael, John, we are going home, Wendy smiled. Hoisting the anchor, cried Peter to his crew. Tink, let's have some pixie dust. Tinkerbell flew all around the ship, sprinkling her magical dust as she went. Then up, up, up went the ship, and as it rose, it began to glow like gold. Wendy, said Mrs. Darling. She was gently shaking her daughter, whom she had found asleep by the window. Oh, mother, we are back, announced Wendy as she woke. Back? Asked Mr. Darling. All except the Lost Boys, explained Wendy. They weren't quite ready to grow up. It was such a wonderful adventure. Tinkerbell and mermaids and Peter Pan. We sailed away in a ship in the sky. Mary said, Mr. Darling, not sharing Wendy's excitement at all. I'm going to bed. But as he turned to leave, Mr. Darling paused to look up into the night sky. There, crossing in front of the moon, was a ship made of clouds. You know, said Mr. Darling, I have the strangest feeling I've seen that ship before, a long time ago when I was very young, and indeed he had. The ending.